Take 10. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for those who do not know me yet, my name is Beth and I make some review videos about ATIT's exam study questions, and also I make random videos for students who are taking prerequisites in RN. And in this video, I'm going to discuss the endocrine system. The first slide says understanding the endocrine system, functions, locations, and hormones. So if you guys are not familiar with the endocrine system, this is what it looks like. And it is composed of the hypothalamus and thyroid gland, pituitary gland, parathyroid gland, adrenal glands, pancreas, ovary for female, and testes for male. So the functions of the endocrine system. First function is water equilibrium. The endocrine system controls water equilibrium by regulating the solute concentration of the blood. The second function is for growth, metabolism, and tissue maturation. So the endocrine system controls the growth of many tissues like the bone and muscle, and the degree of metabolism of various tissues, which aids in the maintenance of the normal body temperature and normal mental functions. Maturation of tissues, which appears in the development of adult features and adult behavior, are also determined by the endocrine system. We're going to discuss it further in the later slides. So next, heart rate and blood pressure management. The endocrine system assists in managing the heart rate and blood pressure and aids in preparing the body for physical motion. Another function is immune system control. So the endocrine system also helps regulate the production and functions of immune cells. What are those immune cells? We will find out in the later slides as well. So next, reproductive functions control or reproductive function controls. So the endocrine system regulates the development and the functions of the reproductive systems in males and females. Next, uterine contractions and milk release. The endocrine system controls uterine contractions throughout the delivery of the newborn and stimulates milk release from the breast in lactating females. And then the last one is ion management. The endocrine system regulates Na plus or sodium plus and potassium, K plus, and calcium or Ca2 plus concentrations in the blood. Okay, to continue the function of the sorry. To continue the functions of the endocrine system, we have blood glucose regulator. The endocrine system controls blood glucose levels and other nutrient levels in the blood. Direct gene activation. Being lipid-soluble molecules, the steroid hormones can diffuse through plasma membranes of their target cells. Once inside, the steroid hormone enters the nucleus and binds to a specific receptor protein in there, okay? Then the hormone receptor complex binds to specific sites on the target cell's DNA, activating certain genes to transcribe messenger RNA. Then the mRNA then is translated into the cytoplasm, resulting in the synthesis of new proteins. Last one is second messenger system. Water-soluble, non-steroidal hormones, protein, and peptide hormones are unable to enter the target cells, so instead, they bind to receptors situated on the target cell's plasma membrane and utilize a second messenger system. So that's it. Okay, so I showed this slide in the first video, and to explain further, we have the hypothalamus. It's in the brain region controlling the pituitary gland. And pituitary gland secretes many different hormones, some of which affect other glands. And then we have the thyroid gland affects metabolism, among other things. And parathyroids help regulate levels of calcium in the blood. Adrenal glands help trigger the fight or flight response. And the pancreas, this is the little kind of worm look like. Pancreas regulates the level of sugar in the blood. And ovary secretes female sex hormones. And testis secretes male sex hormones. So first, let's discuss the hypothalamus. The major endocrine organs of the body include the pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal, pineal, and thymus glands, the pancreas, and the gonads. So this is the first one is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, the hypothalamus, which is part of the nervous system, is also considered as a major endocrine organ because it produces several hormones. It is an important autonomic nervous system and endocrine control center of the brain located inferior to the thalamus. Hypo means below. Hyper means above or high. Yeah. So mixed functions. Although the function of some hormone-producing glands is purely endocrine, the function of others, such as pancreas and gonads, is mixed, both endocrine and exocrine. So I will give you guys a quiz after this video. Pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland is approximately the size of a pea. So as you can see right here on the right picture, you can see the pituitary gland. We have the anterior and posterior pituitary. So location. The pituitary gland hangs by a stalk from the inferior surface of the hypothalamus of the brain, where it is snugly surrounded by the Turk's saddle of the sphenoid bone. And lobes, it has two functional lobes, the anterior pituitary or glandular tissue and the posterior pituitary or the nervous tissue. So we have two lobes. We have the anterior or front and posterior or back. Okay, hormones of the pituitary gland. So in anterior pituitary, there are several hormones of the anterior pituitary that affect many body organs, while posterior pituitary, the posterior pituitary is not an endocrine gland in the strict sense because it does not make the peptide hormones, but it simply acts as a storage area for hormones made by hypothalamic neurons. Okay, let's first discuss the hormones in anterior pituitary. On my physiology class, I remember that there were 7 hormones, and there are 7 hormones in this one. So my teacher is, very accurate. The first one we're going to talk about is the growth hormone or GH. Growth hormone is a general metabolic hormone. However, its major effects are directed to the growth of skeletal muscles and long bones of the body. It is a protein-sparing and anabolic hormone that causes amino acids to be built into proteins and stimulates most target cells to grow in size and divide. So the next hormone is prolactin or PRL. Prolactin is a protein hormone structurally similar to growth hormone. Its only known target in humans is the breast because after childbirth, it stimulates and maintains milk production by the mother's breast. So remember that prolactin is only associated with female and it's only activated when after the child is being born. Okay, the next one is adrenocorticotropic hormone or ACTH. ACTH regulates the endocrine activity of the cortex portion of the adrenal gland. Next is the thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH. TSH is also called thyrotropin hormone, influences the growth and activity of the thyroid gland. The next one is gonadotropic hormones. The gonadotropic hormones regulate the hormonal activity of gonads in ovaries and in females and testes in males. So follicle stimulating hormone or FSH stimulates follicle development in the ovaries. as the follicles mature, they produce estrogen and eggs that are readied for ovulation. In men, FSH stimulates sperm development by the testes. Okay, so for men, FSH has a big role in male because it stimulates sperm development. Okay, and the last one is luteinizing hormone, or LH. LH triggers ovulation of an egg from the ovary and causes the ruptured follicle to produce progesterone and some estrogen. In men, LH stimulates testosterone production by the interstitial cells of the testes. Okay, for posterior pituitary gland, we have oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Okay, so oxytocin is released in significant amount only during childbirth and in nursing women. It stimulates powerful contractions of the uterine muscle during labor, during sexual relations, and during breastfeeding, and also causes milk ejection or the let-down reflex in a nursing woman. So ADH, or antidiuretic hormone, causes the kidneys to reabsorb more water from the forming of urine. As a result, urine volume decreases and blood volume increases. In large amounts, ADH also increases blood pressure by causing constriction of the arterioles, so it is sometimes referred to as vasopressin. Vasopressin. Okay, guys, I'm sorry for my English pronunciation because I'm still, learning to speak English. English is not my first language. I speak Tagalog, Visayan, and some other Philippine dialects. So this is my second language. So thyroid gland is a hormone-producing gland that is familiar to most people primarily because many obese individuals blame their overweight condition on their glands or the thyroid. So we have here the picture of thyroid and parathyroid glands. Okay, location. The thyroid gland is located at the base of the throat, just inferior of the Adam's apple, where it is easily palpated during a physical examination. So, I'm going to tell you a little story about me. When I was in high school, my neck was like really embossed, and some of my classmates told me like, oh, you probably have like hyperthyroidism or some sort of like thyroid disease. But like I was so worried, but I had to I had to go to the doctor for checkup, and thankfully the doctor said your thyroid is fine. So the doctor just advised me to eat food with a lot of source of iodine. So I had to eat like a lot of seafoods, and then thank God, like I don't have it right now. I don't have it anymore. Okay, lobes. It is fairly large gland consisting of two lobes joined by a central mass or isthmus. Isthmus. Okay, for the composition, internally the thyroid gland is composed of hollow structures called follicles, which store a sticky colloidal material. So we have types of thyroid hormones. Thyroid hormones are often referred to as the body's major metabolic hormone. Is actually two active iodine-containing hormones, the thyroxine or T4 and triiodothyronine or T3. So the thyroxine is the major hormone secreted by the thyroid follicles. And on the other hand, triiodothyronine is formed at the target tissues by conversion of the thyroxine to triiodothyronine. It's really hard to pronounce. Okay, so the function. Okay, let me see the function. Function, the thyroid hormones control the rate at which glucose is burned, oxidized, and converted to body heat and chemical energy. It is also important for normal tissue growth and development of calcitonin. Calcitonin decreases blood calcium levels by causing calcium to be deposited within bones. calcitonin is made by the so-called parafollicular cells found in the connective tissues between the follicles. Okay, so then we have the parathyroid gland. Okay, the parathyroid glands are located on the posterior surface of the thyroid gland, and it's mostly tiny masses of glandular tissue. Parathormone, parathormone, um, okay, the kind of hormone that parathyroid secrete is the parathormone. Parathyroid secrete parathyroid hormone or PTH or parathormone, which is the most important regulator of calcium ion and homeostasis of the blood. PTH is a hypercalcemic hormone. That means it acts to increase blood levels of calcium, whereas calcitonin is a hypocalcemic hormone. And PTH also stimulates the kidneys and intestines to absorb more calcium. Okay, so we have here, the next one is adrenal glands. So although the adrenal gland looks like a simple single organ, it is structurally and functionally two endocrine organs in one. So we will find it out. Okay, so we have here the hormones of the adrenal gland. Okay, so we have the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla. So first we are going to discuss about the hormones of the adrenal cortex. So we have here the first one is the mineralocorticoids. The mineralocorticoids, primarily known as aldosterone, are produced by the outmost adrenal cortex cell layer. Mineralocorticoids are important in regulating mineral such as salt content of the blood, particularly the concentrations of sodium and potassium ions, and they also help in the regulating the water and electrolyte balance of the body. So the next one is renin. Renin is an enzyme produced by the kidneys when the blood pressure drops, and also cause the release of aldosterone by triggering a series of reactions that form angiotensin II, a potent stimulator of aldosterone release. So that's it. And then the third one, we have the atrial natriuretic peptide or ANP. ANP prevents aldosterone release, and its goal being to reduce blood volume and blood pressure. The fourth hormone of the adrenal cortex is the glucocorticoids. The middle cortical layer mainly produces glucocorticoids, which include the cortisone and cortisol. So, glucocorticoids promote normal cell metabolism and help the body to resist long-term stressors, primarily by increasing blood glucose levels. Thus, it is said to be a hyperglycemic hormone. And it also reduces pain and inflammation by inhibiting some pain-causing molecule called prostaglandins. So now, the last one is the sex hormones. So both male and female sex hormones are produced by the adrenal cortex throughout life in relatively small amounts. So although the bulk of sex hormones produced by the innermost cortex layer are androgens for male sex hormones, some estrogens for female sex hormones are also formed. So that's okay. Next, we're going to talk about the hormones of the adrenal medulla. So we have the catecholamines and its function. So the catecholamines, when the medulla is stimulated by sympathetic nervous system neurons, its cells release two similar hormones, which is the epinephrine, also called adrenaline, and norepinephrine or noradrenaline, into the bloodstream. Collectively, these hormones are referred to as catecholamines. And the function, basically the catecholamines increase heart rate, blood pressure, and blood glucose levels, and dilate small amount passageways to the lungs. Okay, the catecholamines of the adrenal medulla prepare the body to cope with a brief stressful situation and cause to the so-called alarm stage of the stress response. So that's the function of the hormones of the adrenal medulla. So next is the pancreatic islets. So the other term for pancreatic islets is islets of Langerhans. So we have here a picture on the left side, and it says, it shows the bladder, the pancreatic duct, pancreas, the common bile duct, accessory pancreatic duct, duodenal papilla, duodenum, and in the bottom picture we have the pancreatic acini with exocrine cells. We have the pancreatic islet or with endocrine cells, and pancreatic ducts. I hope you follow me in the picture. So first we're going to talk about islets of Langerhans. So I already mentioned that Langerhans also called a pancreatic islets, and they are little masses of hormone-producing tissue that are scattered among the enzyme producing acinar tissue of the pancreas. So hormones, there are two important hormones produced by the islet cells, which are the insulin and glucagon. Insulin and glucagon, they're both responsible for glucose or sugar in your body. So islet cells act as fuel sensors secreting insulin and glucagon appropriately during fed and fasting states. We also have beta cells. So high levels of glucose in the blood stimulate the release of insulin from the beta cells of the islets. Excuse me. So then we have the alpha cells. Glucagon's released by the alpha cells of the islets is stimulated by low blood glucose level. So alpha cells is only activated when there is a low blood glucose levels in your body, in your system. Then insulin. Insulin acts on just about all the body cells and increases their ability to transport glucose across their plasma membranes. So because insulin sweeps glucose out of the blood, its effect is said to be hypoglycemic. And then we have the glucagon. Glucagon acts as an antagonist of insulin. So it's like glucagon is the opposite of insulin. Okay, that is, it helps to regulate blood glucose levels, but in a way opposite that of insulin, like I already mentioned. Its action is basically hyperglycemic, and its primarily target organ is the liver. So remember, glucagon's target organ is our liver, and which stimulates to break down stored glycogen into glucose and release the glucose into the blood. Okay, if you guys are not familiar of the location of the pancreas, it's located close to the stomach in the abdominal cavity, and it is a mixed gland. So next one is the pineal gland. The pineal gland is also called the pineal body. It's a small cone-shaped gland. So its location, it hangs from the roof of the third ventricle of the brain. So pineal gland is found close to your brain, or it's in the brain itself. Okay, so melatonin. Melatonin is the only hormone that appears to be secreted in substantial amounts by the pineal gland. The levels of melatonin rise and fall during the course of the day and night. So peak levels occur at night and make us drowsy, as melatonin is believed to be the sleep trigger that plays an important role in establishing the body's day-night cycle. So it's like a sleep-wake cycle. Okay, next one is the thymus gland. The thymus gland is large in infants and children and decreases in size throughout adulthood. Isn't it interesting? We'll see. Okay, so the location, the thymus gland is in the upper thorax, posterior of the sternum. Okay, so thymosin is the hormone of the thymus gland. The thymus produces a hormone called thymosin and others that appear to be essential for normal development of a special group of white blood cells. So we have the T lymphocytes or the T cells and the immune response. Next one is the gonads. So the female and male gonads produce sex hormones that are identical to those produced by adrenal cortex, and the only major difference are the source and relative amount produced. So the female gonads or ovaries are okay, and then so we're gonna talk about the hormones of the ovaries. But first, we need to differentiate between the ovaries and the testes. The female gonads or ovaries are a pair of almond-sized organs. Okay, so location is the female gonads are in the pelvic cavity, and the steroid hormones. Beside producing female sex cells, ovaries produce two groups of steroid hormones, which are the estrogen and progesterone. Okay, so it just estrogen. Estrogen alone are responsible for the development of sex characteristics in women and at puberty. So acting with progesterone, estrogens promote breast development and cyclic changes in the uterine lining. That's when menstrual cycle occurs. And then we have the progesterone. Progesterone acts with estrogen to bring about the menstrual cycle. During pregnancy, it quiets the muscles of the uterus so that an implanted embryo will not be aborted, and helps prepare breast tissue or for lactation. So here we have the hormones of the testes, or the testes of the male are paired oval organs in a sac. Okay, which is known. Okay, the testes are suspended in a sac called the scrotum outside the pelvic cavity. Okay, so male sex hormones. In addition to male sex cells or sperm, the testes also produce male sex hormones, or androgens, or of which testosterone is the most important. So testosterone is the male sex hormone. At puberty, testosterone promotes the growth and maturation of the reproductive system organs to prepare the young man for reproduction. It also causes the male secondary sex characteristics to appear and stimulates male sex drive. So testosterone is also necessary for the continuous production of sperm. That's it. Okay, so we also have other hormone-producing tissues and organs. So, beside the major endocrine organs, pockets of hormone-producing cells are found in fatty tissue and in the walls of the small intestine, stomach, kidneys, and heart organs, whose chief functions have little to do with hormone production. So, we have here the placenta. The placenta is a remarkable organ formed temporarily in the uterus of pregnant women. So placenta is only formed when a woman is pregnant. So function, in addition to its roles as the respiratory, excretory, and nutrition delivering systems for the fetus, it also produces several proteins and steroid hormones that help to maintain the pregnancy and pave the way for delivery of the baby. So we also have human chorionic gonadotropin. So during very early pregnancy, a hormone called human chorionic gonadotropin, or HCG, is produced by the developing embryo and then by the fetal part of the placenta. HCG stimulates the ovaries to continue producing estrogen and progesterone so that the lining of the uterus is not sloughed off in the menses. So I think that's the reason why, like, pregnant women, I've been pregnant twice, like I said, and then like pregnant women feel nausea or vomiting all the time. I think it's because of the hormonal changes in the body. Okay, next, human placental lactogen, or HPL. HPL works cooperatively with estrogen and progesterone in preparing the breast for lactation. Okay, and the last one is relaxin. Relaxin, another placental hormone, causes the mother's pelvic ligaments and the pubic symphysis to relax and become more flexible, which eases birth passage. Okay, now we have the physiology of the endocrine system. Although hormones have widespread effects, the major processes they control are reproduction, growth, and development, mobilizing the body's defenses against stressors or foreign stuff, okay, maintaining electrolyte, water, and nutrient balance of the blood, and regulating cellular metabolism and energy balance. So here, the chemistry of hormones. The key to the incredible power of the endocrine glands is the hormones they produce and secrete. So every hormone has a target cell. Always remember that. So hormone only binds to the specific cells they target in the body. Hormones may be defined as chemical substances that are secreted by endocrine cells into the extracellular fluids and regulate the metabolic activity of other cells in the body. Classification. Although many different hormones are produced, nearly all of them can be classified chemically as either amino acid-based molecules, including proteins, peptides, and amines, or steroids. And then steroid hormones, physiologically speaking, steroid hormones made up from cholesterol include the sex hormones made by the gonads and hormones produced by the adrenal cortex. Then we also have amino acid-based hormones. All the other are non-steroidal amino acid derivatives. Okay, now let's move on to mechanisms of hormone action. Although the blood-borne hormones circulate to all the organs of the body, a given hormone affects only certain tissues or organs. So for target cells, for a target cell to respond to the hormone, specific protein receptors must be present on its plasma membrane or in its interior to which that hormone can attach. Only when this binding occurs can the hormone influence the working of cells. So specific hormone targets the specific cells. That's how it works. And function of hormones. The hormones bring about their effect on the body cells primarily by altering cellular activity. That means by increasing or decreasing the rate of a normal or usual metabolic process rather than stimulating a new one. So changes in hormone binding. The precise changes that follow hormone binding depend on the specific hormone and the target cell type, but typically one or more of the following occurs. So we have the changes in plasma membrane permeability or electrical state. We also have the synthesis of protein of certain regulatory molecules such as enzymes in the cell. We also have activation or inactivation of enzymes. We have the stimulation of mitosis and promotion of secretory activity. Okay, and then we have the control of hormone release. So what prompts the endocrine glands to release or not release their hormones? We have here the negative feedback mechanisms and endocrine gland stimuli. So for negative feedback mechanisms, they are the chief means of regulating blood levels of nearly all hormones. And endocrine gland stimuli, the stimuli that activate the endocrine organs, which fall into three major categories, which is the hormonal, humoral, and neural. So first we're going to talk about hormonal stimuli. The most common hormonal stimuli is the most common stimulus in which the endocrine organs are prodded into action by other hormones. For example, the hypothalamic hormone stimulated the anterior pituitary gland to secrete its hormones. And many anterior pituitary hormones stimulate other endocrine organs to release their hormones in the blood. And then we have the humoral stimuli. Humoral changes blood levels of certain ions and nutrients may also stimulate hormone release, and this referred to a humoral stimuli. For example, the release of parathyroid hormone or PTH by cells of the parathyroid glands is prompted by decreasing blood calcium levels. And we have the neural stimuli. Neural stimuli in isolated cases, nerve fibers stimulates hormone release, and the target cells are said to respond to neural stimuli. A classic example is the sympathetic nervous system. stimulation of the adrenal medulla to release norepinephrine and epinephrine during periods of stress. Okay, so that's it for the endocrine system, and I got this information all the way from nurseslabs.com under endocrine system. So I hope you learned something in this video tutorial, and thank you for watching. Keep checking for more review videos, and please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you like my video. And this is Beth from Reality Life series, and see you again next time. Happy Thanksgiving!